So in this video, I'm going to be going over some of the biggest mistakes that homeowners make when it comes to changing out their air filters. And I'm also going to be going over some things that a lot of homeowners don't realize that they need to be looking out for when it comes to these air filters. And while this might seem like a pretty simple thing to a lot of people, stick around because you very well may be surprised at how many of these things either you've done in the past or you might still be doing now. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so for this first one, this is my air handler. We're up here in the attic. Mine is obviously on its side. The first issue that we're going to take a look at, and this is not necessarily a mistake, but this is something that especially new homeowners deal with, and that's when they go to change out their filter, they don't know exactly where it's supposed to go. Now, there can be a couple of different places it can go. It could either go at one of the returns if it's close to the furnace. I've seen some places where you just take off the vent, take out the old filter, put the new one in, screw the vent back on at that return, and that's how the filter is changed. But the majority of the time, it's going to be on the air handler itself. You want to look at where the return air is coming into the air handler. So you want to look down towards the bottom. In my case, it's right down here at the very bottom of the unit. If the return air is coming in from the side, then your box for the filter might be up here on the side, especially if the air handler is vertical. And it's just as easy to remove this door as pull these latches in towards the middle, and then the door comes right off, and there is the filter. All right, so for this next mistake, what a lot of people will do is they'll go to change their filter. They know exactly where it's at. It's right down there. And they'll just go ahead, take the door off, and then reach in there to pull their filter out. And in some cases, this might work out. But what a lot of people don't do, and you really should be, is you need to be turning off the power to your air handler. That at the very least is turning your thermostat off so it doesn't call for any air. But the better and safer way of doing this would be to either turn off the circuit breaker that supplies power to your air conditioner, or in most cases, you're going to have a disconnect either mounted to the air handler itself or very nearby. In my case, I don't know if you can see that gray box right up there. That is my disconnect. That all I need to do is open that up, pull the disconnect out, and now power is no longer going to my air handler, and then I can safely replace my filter. And some of you might be wondering, why is it important to have the power off just to take out my air filter and replace it? I'm not going to be working on anything electrical. There's no chance of me being shocked or electrocuted. Well, what we don't want is, number one, when you take that door off, we don't want the unit to already be running. We also don't want, when you go to take that door off and start pulling that filter out, for the unit to kick on, because multiple things can happen. Once that air kicks on, it's going to be pulling air through that air handler. It's going to make pulling that filter out very difficult. It's going to have a lot of pressure on it. On top of that, if you pull that filter out and this air handler is sucking air through it, it's going to pull anything through on the other side of that filter. It's going to get sucked up into the air handler. Then when it gets sucked up in there, it could do a lot of damage to especially the blower, for instance. All right, so this next mistake is a big one, and it's one that is unfortunately more common than a lot of people might think. We're ready to pull our old filter out, so we'll just go ahead and pull that out. Then we'll take our new filter, go ahead and put that in. And now everyone would think that this is ready to go. Put the cover back on, start everything back up, and we won't have any issues. Well, the problem is I did something wrong here. So let me go ahead and just slightly pull this back out. So now that I've pulled this out, do you see any issues with the way that I put this in? Yeah, for those of you that noticed, if you look right down here, this says air and it has an arrow. And what that means is it's trying to tell you which way the air is supposed to flow through this filter. They're made in such a way that the air is only supposed to flow through them in one direction. So when you put one of these in backwards like I did here, that's going to restrict the airflow that's trying to pass through this even more, which is going to wear down the motor inside of this faster. It's going to cause the unit to have to work harder, which is going to cause the electric bill to go up. And it's typically not going to be able to cool your house as fast either. So let's go ahead, pull this out, flip it over to the other side. Now my arrow is pointing in this direction. The arrow should always be pointing up into the unit. No matter which side the box is on, the arrow needs to be pointing up into the unit, because that's going to be the direction that the airflow is going to be trying to be pulled. Once you know which way the arrow is supposed to be pointing, what you can very easily do is just take a Sharpie and then just draw an arrow on the unit that is pointing in the direction that the arrow on the filter should be pointing when it's inserted. That way you and everybody else, nobody gets confused on which way the filter gets put in to the air handler. All right, so for this next big mistake, this one can cause damage and cause you to be breathing in all kinds of contaminants if you don't do this correctly. So we've got our filter in, we got it in the correct way. Now we need to close this door up so nothing gets sucked in. So you just go ahead, take the door, put it on there, and then you've got a latch up here and a latch down here. And they're supposed to be pushed away from the middle and latch into the metal. Well, sometimes these things can be finicky, they can be very tricky, and you might think you have the door on, but I've seen it before to where one of these latches is not locked into place. You start everything up, the unit starts up, of course this is going to vibrate, it's got motors in it, and what can end up happening over time is, number one, we've already got a compromised seal here because it's not tight, but as this vibrates, this door can just kind of fall just a little bit out of the way, like so. And if it goes on long enough, it can go even further out of the way, and now nothing is stopping all kinds of dirt, pollen, contaminants from just getting sucked into this unit here, which again, you're going to be breathing in all that junk. Your filter is doing nothing for you, and it's also making the top of your air handler at the coils, on the blower, all of the components inside of it, they're all getting super dirty, causing them to go bad sooner, and then also causing the unit to have to work harder. All right, so this next mistake is a huge one and incredibly common because it actually is what leads to a lot of the service calls that AC techs get to come out to somebody's house because they're having an issue. All right, so for the most part, the industry standard that a lot of people are told as far as how often they should change out their filters is every 90 days or every 3 months. But I can tell you right now, this is just simply not the truth for so many people. So for instance, if we take this cheap fiberglass filter here, this is a MERV 1. This is what a lot of your HVAC techs are just putting in units if they're the ones that are changing out your filter, unless you request something else. And it says to change the filter every 30 days. Then if we take a look at this filter, you'll see right here where it says last up to 3 months. And the important words here are up to. But how do you know how long you can leave your filter in? It's pretty easy actually. You just put in a new filter, and then I would say every month you go up and you check it. If you pull it out and it still looks fairly close to this, I mean, you can see some dirt in it, but it's not too bad, then that means you can put it back in and you can go for another month and then check it after 2 months. But if you pull your filter out and it looks like this one, and this is the one I just pulled out of mine, I left it in there on purpose extra long so that I could get results like this. But this is what so many people are doing. They just completely forget about their filters. They just leave them in there for 5, 6, 12 months plus, and then they wonder why their AC drain lines get plugged up or their blower motor goes out, and it's because you're not changing out your filter. So do yourself a favor, figure out how long your environment can go without having to change out the filter, and make sure that you are changing it out and making reminders to change it out on a regular basis. All right, so for the next mistake that a lot of people make, it comes down to the filter size. If you buy one that's too small, the air is going to take the path of least resistance. It is just going to go around your filter. So it is super important to make sure that you get the proper size filter for your particular unit. Otherwise, you run the risk of causing damage to your unit and also basically making your filter worthless and breathing in everything that you're trying to get it to filter out. Now, for this next mistake, this is where things are going to get very controversial. There's a lot of opinions out there. So again, if we go back to this cheap green fiberglass filter, completely see-through, obviously doesn't catch much. It's a MERV 1. This is just there to catch the large particulates to protect the air handler itself. But that's because these were not designed with purifying your air in mind. Then we move on to this filter. And this filter is a MERV 12. They go higher than this. They go MERV 14, even 16 and above. And they list all these things right here that the filter is supposed to remove out of your air. The problem though is the way that this captures all of these extra things is because the media inside of this filter is much denser. So when it's denser, it makes the air more restrictive, so air can't flow through it as well. The 3M Filtrete filters are some of the best filters you can buy on the market. That is not what I'm trying to highlight here. Regardless of brand, I'm talking about the MERV rating and how much denser that they are. And I know the argument will also be, well, these higher efficiency filters, especially on the Filtreats, they have so many more pleats, more surface area, so it's gonna breathe better. And to an extent, I do believe that that is true. However, because it's so much denser, collects all these particulates, it's going to dirty up faster. It's already denser than your other filters. And once it starts collecting everything, it's gonna make the air passing through this filter a whole lot harder. I have just seen way too often and heard from so many AC techs the stories of people using these high efficiency filters. What ends up happening is their units freeze up. Literally, they freeze up the coils up in the air handler because not enough airflow is passing over them. And it also causes the blower to work harder, which causes the blower to go out faster, along with jacking up your prices because your unit's having to run harder. I still recommend using a pleated filter. Pleated filters do a much better job. I recommend personally anywhere from a MERV 5 up to a MERV 8, which is what this is. These are still gonna pull out a lot of the things that you're wanting to pull out, but they're not restricting the airflow because they're not nearly as dense. These have worked great for me in conjunction with using things that are actually made to purify the air, which is not your filters. Actually using air purifiers with HEPA filters in them, placing them down below or around your returns, which will help distribute that cleaner air all throughout the house. Using these to do the majority of the work and the air purifiers to remove everything else, including even smoke, in the long run, in my opinion, is the way to go and is just gonna make your air as clean as possible without running any risk to doing damage to your AC unit. And this next mistake is another really big one and probably what the vast majority of homeowners do when it comes to purchasing their filters. You are spending a lot of money by purchasing those individually. You really need to look into purchasing them in bulk. And a lot of your big box home improvement stores do sell some of these different MERV ratings and sizes in bulk. It's their most popular ones typically, but even then, their pricing still a lot of times is not as inexpensive as other places that you can buy these. So for those of you that have been driving to the store when you need one and just buying one or two or three of them singularly, I really encourage you, check out some of the online retailers like Amazon, which is where I'm purchasing them from. I showed you I have a weird size unit. They have so many options for me as far as MERV rating and how many filters come in a bulk bundle. And I've really found that they are incredibly hard to beat on their pricing. So at the very least, check it out. See how much money you can save by buying them in bulk. I'll have links for a bunch of different sizes of filters and brands that you can check out down in the description down below. When you click on those links, it'll take you directly to those products. See if you find any that fit your unit and your needs. And I'd also be curious, after you take a look at how much they are and figure out how much money you're gonna be able to save by buying them in bulk, if you could, and if you got some time, leave a comment down in the comment section and let us know how much money you're gonna be able to save either on a per filter basis or even on a monthly or annual basis. That would be not only interesting for me to know, but also for all the other folks in our community so that they can also have an idea how much money they could expect to save as well. Now, when it comes to selecting the proper filter for you, this is really just scratching the surface. I did a video fairly recently where I really break down some of the most popular filters and what they can offer you, but then also to look at some of the possible ramifications that can come with using some of those higher efficiency filters. If that's of interest to you, all you have to do is click on this video right over here and it will take you directly to it. So I hope that you found value in this video, and if you did, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button right down below. And of course, if you have any questions or comments still, you can leave those down in the comment section. And I'll catch you all in the next one. See ya.